The sponge method is the ideal method for lower fat cookies. This technique involves taking a whisked or whipped egg and sugar mixture and folding in the dry ingredients. For the modified sponge method, an egg yolk and sugar mixture is utilized versus just an egg white meringue, which makes it a modified traditional sponge method. One of the more important aspects of this technique is using room temperature ingredients and mixing them very carefully. The goal in mixing gently is to create as little leavening as possible. To begin, preheat the oven to 350 degrees. First, start with your double boiler. Again, make sure there's about 1 inch of water on the bottom brought to a simmer. Make sure that your bowl sits on top, wobbling, and we're going to melt the chocolate and the butter together. To make sure that the chocolate and butter don't overheat, you want to allow them to melt about 2/3 of the way melted, and then we'll take it off the heat and let the residual heat in the chocolate and the butter take care of the rest, and we'll gently stir it together. The chocolate is mostly melted. We'll just stir it, agitate it a bit to help the rest of the chocolate pieces melt as well as the butter. And then we'll take it off the heat to cool. When you take it off the heat, make sure that you wipe any water, any steam that's formed on the bottom off so that none of the water gets into your bowl of chocolate. And put your bowl on a cloth. We don't want direct contact between the bowl of chocolate and our countertop because the countertop will cool the chocolate more right where it is in contact with the bowl. So having a barrier there is going to help it cool uniformly. Next, we're going to put our sugar, eggs, and salt over the double boiler and whisk it together. The purpose of this is not to incorporate air, but you do want to make sure that that sugar is melted in with the egg, and it'll help stabilize your cookie dough. So the sugar is all melted, and I'm going to put this aside to cool down a bit until room temperature. Next, we're going to sift together our dry ingredients, our flour, our cocoa powder, and our baking powder. Again, we do this to make sure that there are no lumps and clumps with the cocoa powder and that the baking powder will be evenly distributed in the dry mixture. Now that our egg and sugar mixture is about the same temperature as the chocolate and butter mixture, we're going to combine the two of them. And you can do this just using a spatula. We're going to fold them together. So take your spatula, go around the sides of the bowl. Now we're ready to incorporate our wet ingredients into our dry ingredients. So we're taking our sponge and mixing it in with the dry ingredients. It's easiest to do this in stages, 2 or 3 stages. Same technique with folding in. Outside of the bowl and inward. also tell that this looks different than a creaming method cookie. It looks much more dry. It looks more like a paste. And that's exactly how we want it to look. And at this point, you can add in the white chocolate chips or nuts, macadamia nuts, almonds, pecans, your choice. Gently fold in. While creaming method cookies work very well in a mixing bowl with a paddle attachment because you want to create a lot of air, since this one doesn't have as much lift and we don't want as much lift, this is a very easy cookie to make without using a stand mixer. All right, so your batter is fully incorporated, but you can definitely tell that it's a drier dough, which is good. From here, we're going to take a portion scoop so that we are making uniform cookies and set them on our parchment-lined baking sheet. As always, we want to make sure that we are packing the scoop completely so that all of our cookies are uniform. Press down on the tops of them. We don't want to smush them. Just lightly press down with the palm of your hand. Bake until the cookies are crisp on the edges and the centers will appear dry. This should roughly take about 10 to 15 minutes. After the cookies are done, allow to cool for a few minutes on the sheet pan before transferring to a cooling rack. Because this batter is more fragile, it must be prepared and baked the same day. The baked cookies will keep for up to 4 days when covered. This lower fat method is also the same technique for creating brownies, bar cookies, and biscotti, so it's a crucial skill to develop as a baker.